What is something that in your culture is normal, but in another place is a weird thing? Getting a sausage from a hardware shop. I love food and stuff. It's where I buy all me food and most of me stuff. Bunnings, no less weird than meatballs from a furniture shop, like the hot dog stand in the Home Depot. I'm trying to remember if that's just me local store. Edit. Crystal Lake, ill. Biltemakorv, Biltema, Sweden. Or when you vote. Seems that's a lot more normal than you think. To leave the stroller with the sleeping baby inside it outside a calf, while the mom or dad sits inside. If the weather is good. Denmark edit. It's a common thing all over Scandinavia or Scandinavian Peninsula. I'm specifically mentioning Denmark because I live here. I knew about this as I read some time ago how a woman in the US was charged for letting her baby outside a calf. Holy shit. This would cause such havoc in the US. Oh, the fat ones watching the little one. Used to be normal in the Gupto do this outside shops. The murder of Jamie Bulger, although he was left outside, put an end to that practice. In Vietnam, when you order in places with menace, the waiter will stare at you when you chose food. This happened to me in Malaysia. Waiters hand the menu and just wait until you pick your dish. It was a bit nerve-wracking, so I rushed me order. They also often stare when they give the check. I guess they expect you to carefully check it, but it'd be awkward to do that in front of the server in many other places. What are they trying to do? That was actually a culture shock for me. I am a Viet immigrant to the US, and first time we ordered food, our waitress just handed us the menu and walked away. It was very strange. In India, I was having breakfast in a medium fancy hotel. I was the only one in the dining area, so I had a waiter standing right near me. He had a ready yet unassuming stance, hands behind his back, the posture of a guard just waiting for anything I did to activate his compliance. It became too much for me too early on. I had to say to him that I just want to eat me omelette and toast, drink me tea, think about my day ahead, and read the paper. Please go about your life and forget about me. Thank you. He duly complied. Went to a Colombian restaurant fully staffed by Colombians, and the waitress did this while we looked at the menu. Just standing there. Very uncomfortable. Using a puzzling mixture of metric and imperial measurements, for example, measuring cooking ingredients in grams, but measuring body weight in stones. Ok. Canada's similar but uses a different mixed-up combination, lol. We measure weight in pounds, your height in feet and inches, and measure ingredients with cups or tablespoons, but pretty much everything else is in metric. One that I find funny is temperature. If you ask what temperature it is outside, it's always in Celsius, and most Canadians would have no clue what it is in Fahrenheit. But if you're cooking something, the heat of your oven is always measured in Fahrenheit, lol. And another one we noticed personally is that everyone I've ever known who owned a pool always measured the water temperature in Fahrenheit for some reason. So they tell me that their pool was 75 or something, and I just have to say, so is that good or bad? Lol. Us as well. Everything related to the medical field is in metric. But we use imperial for just about everything else. To make things even more confusing, our versions of what makes up each unit is different than Australia or the GUC, for example. A paint is not the same volume in each place. Even better. What temperature should I cook this at? Gas Mark 5. Some casual Iranian sayings of endearment. I want to eat your livery will sacrifice me life for you, me stomach is tight for you, wishing your breath to be warm, not endearing, but dirt on your head if you are upset with someone, essentially meaning that you should be buried. How can you forget days to Shoma Dardnakon? or dastit dard nakon, which means thank you, but literally it means may your hands not hurt. Heard it in Balochi the first time. We say it like dastit dard meka. Oh, speaking of Iran, there was a guy posting in Ask Reddit years ago that was gushing about how this Iranian shopkeep kept giving him free things. I had to break it to them that day. I could practically feel the realization in his reply. I wish I could find it. To those who don't know, in places like Iran and many others it's customary to engage in a sort of politeness battle. I literally know this from an old cracked listicle. In English we've always had I just want to eat you up for kids or animals that are very cute. Lately Jens has added a lot to those gruesome endearments. I want him to run me over with his car. I would let her wear me skin for people who are hot or generally good. It literally D for him in reference to cute things like puppies. It's kind of a new phenomenon, I feel, as I never heard these types of phrases growing up, and older adults typically find them very alarming, but will still say it could just eat you up to new babies. So interesting. There was a Japanese movie that came out a few years ago called I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. I was really confused, and now I hope the reasoning was the same. We have some of them as well. Turkey. Pointing to a direction with your lips. Very Philippines. We Filipinos do this. Because there's an old saying that it's rude to point with your fingers. There's an actual video from early 20th century where a Filipina was captured using her lips to point into something or someone. Can't provide the vid though. Pretty sure this is common in a solid few cultures actually. I remember noticing that detail in that new Encanto animated movie. It was so wholesome. Next. Cree. I've read about an explorer that encountered an unknown tribe. Trying to learn their language, he started pointing at things with his finger, but no matter what he pointed at, a mountain, a tree or a cow, it was always the same word. This tribe also used to point with their lips. So when the explorer pointed with his finger, they told him the word for finger in their language. Eark, Terry Pratchett used this in one of his books where an explorer recorded the name of a mountain as what in the local language meant your finger you fool. Filipino. That's interesting. No pointing with the finger or head. Just lips. I had a boss from Venezuela who used to do it. He actually asked me to point it out whenever he did it because he was trying to break himself of the habit. He said everyone did it in Venezuela, but it looks weird here in the US because it looks like a grown man is doing that duck face thing girls do in selfies. Celebrating a chubby, mystical groundhog that can predict the end of winter based on its shadow. Oh, Imcajan, and we have a knockoff version that's a nutria rat called Purichi Shadiok. Celebrating a chubby go on mystical groundhog all right then. I wouldn't say this is part of me culture, but in both Kenya and India, when you go to the movies they play the national anthem on screen before the trailers and everyone has to stand up. It'd been away for so long that I'd completely forgotten this craziness and was visiting me mum. Went to watch a movie, everyone stood up, and I was so confused until the memories were unlocked. Was well over a decade ago when I was there, but it's a thing in Thailand as well. I gather that recent protests have made it much more controversial than it was under the previous king. This happens while on a military installation. When I was stationed in Korea, they played the Korean and a national anthem, and people started standing up. I was so confused. Deleted. Addressing strangers using terms used for family members like brother, sister, uncle, auntie, grandpa, etc. The most common being brother or sister. We have unique words representing all for variations of little or big brother or sister. And guess what? One day you would be calling a girl Bainy little sister. That girl be calling you day big brother, and a couple weeks later you are dating each other and ditch the sibling style addressing. Then you either call each other by name or come up with nicknames. Edit. I'm from Nepal. Nepal. Same here in South Korea. We would call a restaurant server by shouting auntie and a total stranger grandma. India too. In fact, all elders are uncles and aunts. Older guys pay a brother and girl daddy sis. So ingrained that I called a taxi driver uncle by mistake in the gully when I was a student. He did not like that. Same in India. If you want to talk to someone you don't know, you just call them uncle or auntie or bay brother or behin sister depending on how old they look. They also do this in Philippines. Russian has a similar thing where you refer to strangers as dedia uncle or tiotia aunt, however it's often restricted to third person and considered very coarse or even rude compared to the much more formal moshina and shenshina, which don't really have a specific translation beyond man and woman respectively, but are derived from the words for husband and wife. Touching elders' feet as a greeting and sign of respect. We kiss their hands here Middle East. How and when do you bend down to touch them, or does he lift up his foot? Or do you both sit down? My father has 8 siblings, and all of them have men of 3 offsprings who are more than 10 years older than me. I have back issues now. I was watching an Indian documentary recently. Someone being interviewed was like such kind and polite children, always touched our feet, and it really confused me for a second. Ah yes, a fellow Indian, howdy my friend. Beating women with a bundle of twigs, throwing cold water at them, and then spraying them with cologne as a part of folk tradition on Easter. Throw in a box of Twinkies and a half-gram of crystal meth, and it would be just like Tuesday night in the trailer park. Mingus Dingus from Poland. But it's not limited to women anymore, it seems. Posted, I am guessing women do not anticipate the coming of Easter with much enthusiasm. Slovakia, right. I'm English, but I have plenty of Slovakian friends. I was in the Czech Republic one Easter with me Czech when this was explained to me, and I was horrified. Because it was explained to me like the men beat the evil out of the women. But I ended up having some cognitive dissonance because they chased me laughing girlfriend around with the Pomlaska braided twigs and spanked her with it, and we had a great time, and everyone in the whole city seemed to think it was good clean fun regardless of its terrifying roots. It was so wild to be a part of and witness. Really old world stuff. Being casually naked in same room with strangers, sometimes even with opposite sex. In this case, it's of course good old Finnish sauna. Sometimes we make whip or whisk from birch branches and beat the devil out of yourself or guy next to you while in sauna. I mean, a sauna has completely different rules. I went to Finland to play hockey when I was 15, and the father and son of the host family who stayed with suggested we take a sauna after dinner. I was really taken back when I walked in and their dicks are just hanging out like it was a normal occurrence. I guess they thought I was weird for wearing a towel, though. Guests pay to attend the wedding banquet. Depending on who you invite, it's quite common for the newlyweds to make a decent profit. Well, that's just giving a gift to the couple. That's fairly standard in one way or another, right? I don't consider it paying to attend a wedding like buying tickets if I put money in an envelope as a gift. Cheering in a pub when someone drops a glass. Saluting Maggie saying buy it, both buy. Buy it now. Buy it, both buy. 100 times before you hang up the phone. Going to the funeral of anyone you even remotely know. Our funerals can be massive. Waving a salute to anyone you pass on the road. Leaving the pub without telling anyone. Using your man or your own as a placeholder when discussing any person you aren't otherwise acquainted with or have a name for. Don't go down that street. Your man selling the raffle tickets is about as she your one who shit herself at the Debs a couple of years ago. Who's your man wearing the scarf in this weather? Knob. Achman, you know him, that fella you know. Your man with the face etiquette's something I've found tourists or foreigners get very confused by, as it's used quite commonly. What do you mean? I don't have a man. To add to this, saying well as a form of greeting, making fun of people you have just met as means to get along, ending sentences with yeah. Describing a funny person as a gas man, referring to a male you don't know as your man and you're one for a female in quiet areas, greeting strangers as you walk past the medit. Good one came to my head. Hiberno. English. Am I not need be. Need not be usen't to do that. I never did that. He parked my bike outside the shop and went inside. I came back out, and there was me bike gone. My bike was stolen. Dad. I really like the Mac B1. An offer of any food or drink to a guest must be refused at least twice. When I was a teenager, I visited Ireland with me family from the US. My dad noticed that other drivers were waving to him as we drove through various small towns and bits of rural countryside. He started waving back and made a big deal out of it to the rest of us in the car. He was really proud of himself for fitting in or something along those lines. Had cracked the code of the local customs and was giddy about it. I remember sitting in the back seat as an angsty teen, thinking, for fuck's sake, Dad, what's your deal, man? Nobody cares. Fast forward 20 or so years, my wife and I visited Ireland, and I was the one in the driver's seat. And I've got to say, there's something unreasonably thrilling about giving a friendly little nod and wave to a stranger from the car, knowing that they'll give you one back. I suddenly understood my dad's weird excitement about figuring that out for himself. Thankfully, I did have an angsty teen in the back seat judging the shit out of me for it. Though, sorry, Pops. Going to the funeral of people you've never met, to show emotional solidarity to the family members you may know, or snaffle a few free ham sandwiches and a cuppa. Forget double negatives. Anything up to a quadruple negative is fine in a sentence. Sure no yeah, said through sharp inhale. Sure you know yourself like, now yes, depending on context. Also sticking the word so and like at the end of a sentence for no reason. I take it you're out for the night, so. Has sound like. Saying bye book bye now, bye, book bye. 100 times before you hang up the phone. We do the same thing in South Africa, Ireland. All of those can be in many parts of the UK or Ireland. Was once in a bar in the US with a load of Brits. Some dropped a glass and all our table cheered. Weird looks from everyone else. My dad saying goodbye is the halfway point in a phone call. Hot dish and jello salad. Waiting for the bus in 30-degree weather because it could be worse. The candidest community I've ever met. One time I got stuck in a snow bank trying to get on the city bus, and everyone around me helped pull me up and onto the bus. Minnesota. E. Tell your folks I say hi. Jello salad. My Grammy used to make that. I had the Tupperware mold for the longest time until I realized one day that even though I enjoyed it as a kid, I'm realistically never going to make it. Apparently people don't just walk up to strangers and start a conversation in other places. Friendly people here tend to do it, and most actually don't mind a little small talk. Edit. Apparently everyone does this everywhere except around the Baltic and North Seas. This is a mortal sin in the Nordic countries. People would think you are mentally unwell or trying to scam or rob them. I'm really she. So I think this is impossible for me. From what I know, this tends to be depend if you're in a rural or urban area in the is at least. The explanation I've heard is that in areas where you're less likely to see people regularly, it's polite to make an effort and small talk when you do see them. In a place like a major city where you're constantly around people, however, it may be more polite to let others have some space when they can get it. It's something I've noticed moving from a smallish city 75 to a small town 16. Strangers here are way more likely to ask questions and small talk here than they were back home, and it's been even more stark when I visit large cities. Obviously, it's dependent on the city or region, but that's been me experience or. I currently live in Asia and visited the south of the US recently, where I'm from. I'd forgotten how many people start up random conversations, especially women when shopping. Happens a lot. It's sweet to me, but I can understand how it startle people who aren't used to it. In me culture, it is considered an insult to refuse food offered to you in someone else's home if you are their guest. All East Europe.